Frank Pallone, the distinguished chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee. They're going to share their views about saving lives by testing. There have been outstanding forces in the Congress on this subject. We're also delighted to be joined by Representative Robin Kelly of Illinois, who was the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust. Grace Meng of New York, a leader in this House of Representatives, a member of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Pete Aguilar, another member of the Appropriations Committee, and Deb Haaland, a new member of Congress, chair of her subcommittee on natural resources, all of them leaders in the Congress, and with something to say from their standpoint generationally, geographically, ethnically, and committee-wise, and the rest. So in our first bill, March 4th, we wrote it in February, passed it in March 4th, testing, testing, testing. That was what the bill was about. We thought that the executive branch would act upon that. They did not, but we put out that commitment. By the time the president signed CARES 1, which was March 28th, we had March 4th, March 14th, and then March 28th, our third bill. We had some funding for hospitals and healthcare and the rest there, PPE, addressing the spread of the coronavirus. And then when we did the PPP interim bill a couple of weeks later, that was a place where we put a big chunk of money for testing and for hospitals and the rest. Still, we had not seen what we would have expected from the administration. So over the weekend, they put out something. I won't call it a plan because it wasn't a plan. A plan has a strategy, it has a goal, it has a timetable, it has benchmarks, it has milestones. It didn't have any of the above. No guidance, real guidance for how we can test, trace, treat, isolate, defeat this virus. In our bill that we put forth in the HEROES Act, we provide just such a strategic plan of action. And I'm so pleased that our distinguished chair of the committee, Mr. Pallone, is here to talk about it. For a long time, Mr. Clyburn has been talking about how we do outreach into underserved communities. He used examples of previous health issues in rural America where they had mobile units going out to reach out to people, to provide services to them to save lives and limbs, as it turns out, lives and limbs. In the bill that we passed, the HEROES Act, it strengthens the testing and contact tracing by requiring updated testing plan with clear benchmarks and timelines, as I mentioned. It provides $75 billion in grants to support testing, tracing, and isolation, with a special focus on addressing disparities on how this villainous virus is assaulting communities of color in our country, and requiring culturally and linguistically appropriate strategies for increasing access to testing and tracing. It's one of three pillars. Our first pillar is honor our heroes, state and local. Open our economy, testing, 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 money in the pockets of the American people. Three pillars of our HEROES Act legislation. This is the testing pillar. It is essential for the economic recovery of our country. It is essential for the health and well-being of the American people. It is essential to sending our children back to school. It's usually always about the children. So we expect that we will go to the table to do the smart thing that scientists all advise we must do if we're going to win this battle against the virus. We must test. It's central. We must trace. It's central. We must treat. It's essential. The Republican leader in the Senate says, we think we need a pause. I don't think the virus is taking a pause. I don't think hunger is taking a pause. I don't think job insecurity is taking a pause. I don't think paying your rent takes a pause. We don't need a pause. We need action. And today we're focusing our action on testing, testing, texting. And with that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished Democratic whip of the House, the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Clyburn. Now, how are we doing this? I go over here.
Oh, Sister,
You go over there. I'm not passing it by.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Today, we are witnessing the 100,000 people who have perished in this country because of this virus. This virus has visited every family, including my own. Our colleague, Maxine Waters' sister, we lost her to this virus 2 weeks ago. On March 19th, as we held a caucus via the telephone, I said to my colleagues that this challenge offers us a tremendous opportunity to restructure things in our vision. I was vilified for that by some of my friends on the other side of the aisle, but the fact of the matter is, our vision is embodied in the pledge that many of us grew up every morning reciting. Our pledge of allegiance to the flag closes with the vision of this country, with liberty and justice for all. I don't back away from that. My reason for existence is to help this country live out that pledge that many of us know has gone unfulfilled for many, many years. Just this morning, the Washington Post has published a pretty significant interview that it had with Senator Marco Rubio, the Republican senator, who chairs the Small Business Committee of the Senate. He talks in that interview about his own parents who came here. One, a maid, and one, a bartender. And he says that if this pandemic was here 35 years ago, he talked about what it would have done to his family, because both of them would have lost their jobs working in the service industry. And he talks in an interview about how the structure that we operate under in this country subjects those who work in service industries, those who cannot work from home, how this virus is devastating their communities.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Holland, Madam Chair. As you can see, my friends, whether it's California, Pete Aguilar, Illinois, Robin Kelly, New Jersey, Mr. Chairman, Frank Pallone, New York City, Grace Meng, Deb Holland, New Mexico, Mr. Clyburn, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Whip, Mr. Clyburn, South Carolina. Is that all of us? And California as well. All over the country, we have the same message for the president. Mr. President, take responsibility. You heard that in every comment that was made. The refusal to take responsibility is taking lives, livelihood, and again, the vitality, the life of our democracy. This testing is the key. It is, you cannot cross the threshold inside to outside to open the economy unless you have this key, which is testing. I hope you had some appreciation for the breadth of knowledge, the depth of commitment, and the specificity of suggestions that our colleagues are making here today. They represent the concern of the House Democratic Caucus. More importantly, they represent the concerns of their constituents. Constituents who want, obviously, to open up, want children to go to school, want to be healthy. Testing, testing, testing. So I thank them all for their leadership, for being with us this afternoon on this nearly 1 around 100 days since the first death, 100,000 deaths later. We've got to put a stop to it. Thank you all very much, and with that, be pleased to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Speaker, understanding everything you're saying about testing, parts of the country are starting to reopen. We are seeing reopening plans. How soon do you think the country should reopen? How should we handle that? Is the president handling that correctly as well, especially regarding political conventions? Should we assume political conventions should go forward?
Well, let us say we all want the country to open up, but science tells us that there is a path, a healthy path, to open up in a healthy way. And that path is testing, tracing, treatment, and isolation if necessary. No, I don't think the president has handled it well. I don't even think he gives good example by wearing a mask, for heaven's sake. Not to protect him if he feels invulnerable, but to protect others. That's why we wear masks. The number of people who should be in church, the number of people who should be at any gathering, those are determinations that are made locally, and I respect that as we unfold this opening. I don't think there's anyone who would say at this point that tens of thousands of people should come together for a political convention, no matter how great an ego trip it is for somebody. It's dangerous for so many. But let's hope and let's pray that a vaccine is imminent, that a therapy or a cure is nearby, but they aren't. Testing is. Let's go there. Let's go there first. Yes, sir.
Madam Speaker, can you describe where you are with the status of these ongoing negotiations, obviously given the Senate Republicans' sort of flat-out rejection of the HEROES Act? And
You know what?
conversations with the administration, with Leader McConnell, what is the state of play?
A week and a half ago, we passed on the floor of the House the HEROES Act. HEROES Act, we gave nearly $1 trillion to states and localities to meet the needs of their constituents, of their people, to meet the needs of the American people. It went to them to meet the expenses they incurred fighting the coronavirus and also for the lost revenue. A week and a half ago, we passed a bill with a great strategic plan, thank you, Mr. Pallone, for testing. A week and a half ago, we passed a bill to put more money in the pockets of the American people. That was our offer to the Republicans, invite them to negotiate. When I read in some of my local metropolitan journals that it was partisan and nowhere to go, nobody said that when Mitch McConnell put forth his bill, CARES 1. Nobody said that when he put forth the next bill, right, Mr. Clyburn? The interim PPP. It was an offer. And we came, we negotiated, we turned those bills around, and we had bipartisanship. So I would like the same, shall we say, courtesy extended to the House Democrats for our putting forth our disciplined, focused, necessary legislation to kill the coronavirus, to open our economy, to send our kids to school, and to again, honor our heroes, our state and local workers, our healthcare workers, our first responders, firefighters, police, emergency services, transportation, sanitation, food service. Did I say that already? Teachers. The list goes on. Let's honor our heroes. Let's end this virus. Let's do that. And if they want to say no, I have news for them. The American people are on to this across the country, and my colleagues can attest. There's a drumbeat that says we need to do more. They need to do more. So my interest is with the message to the American people, send the Republicans in the Senate, that it's we cannot take a pause. We have to end the death, the dying. We have to open the economy. We have to do so in a way that gives more opportunity for access to care, to credit, to opportunity in our country. Because as Mr. Clyburn said, this is an opportunity. Every crisis is. Yes, ma'am.
Would you be willing to take the testing portion of the HEROES Act and put it forward as a standalone bill, the way you're doing with the PPP legislation later this week?
Our bill it has its oneness. It has its integrity. The only piece we took out was that PPP because really every day made a difference. It was urgent. So too with testing. If I thought that they would pass it, I would. I think that maybe they don't share our value on that, or else they would have done it themselves. So we have to use other leverage in the bill as we go forward. Yes, Gary.
Speaker, on the topic of reopening, the mayor of DC announced they're going to start rolling back the restrictions in the District of Columbia on Friday. Does that play into your decision at all about ending the state of emergency in Congress and bringing the full House back as opposed to keeping proxy voting and so forth going on longer?
Well, we are pretty much fully, we have a large number of members who are here. Again, it's transportation, it's individual situations with the virus and with someone who might be in their home, who might be susceptible. But we're here, and for those who can't be here, we have the proxy voting. It is there for 45 days, starting today, right, Mr. Khan? It's starting today, 45 days. If we see a need at the end of the 45 days, then we can extend that. But our timing was predicated on the Sergeant at Arms and giving us the signal that we could put this forward.
So you wouldn't end it sooner than 45 days if conditions in DC continue to improve, or elsewhere in the country?
Well, let's hope and pray that they do, and then we can cross that bridge. We can cross that threshold when we come to it. Anybody? Yes, sir.
The House is voting this afternoon on this bicycle.
Excuse me, just 1 second, if you hold on that. Any other questions and for my colleagues? Anything you'd like to say about any of the questions that were asked? Step up. Ms. Byron, anything? On the, whether we should take the testing piece out, whether what we think about the Republican. I said the same thing. That bill will never pass the House when they put forth their bills. That bill will never pass the House, right?
There's one thing I might mention, Madam Speaker. One of the things that we have in the HEROES Act, there's language, thanks to Frank Pallone, that asks the Federal Communications Commission to step up its allocations of billions of dollars that's already appropriated so that we can use this money now to do the broadband that's necessary that Grace Ming talked about. Just South Carolina alone will reap $353 million. And we asked them to do that by June 30th. And that is a piece of legislation that I'm going to be introducing along with Representative Upton of Michigan. The bill is being filed today because we think it's critical to spend out that money between now and June 30th because little children stand the threat of losing a second year of school if we don't have broadband available to them. And so the Speaker has worked with me, and we are going to propose that as a separate piece of legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Clyburn has been a champion working with, again, the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Chairman Pallone, on this issue of broadband. It will be even more significantly put forth in our infrastructure bill, which we hope to bring up soon because it is so necessary. We thought it was necessary before, right? But then with district learning, with telemedicine, with so many things that are happening electronically, it's absolutely essential. We can have a whole press, well, we have had whole press conferences on that. So unless there are any other questions on testing, tracing, treatment, isolation? Yes, sir.
The House is voting later today on this
Yes.
bill, but you're no longer voting on a bipartisan amendment by Zoe Lofgren to limit the collection of internet search history. Why not? And if the underlying bill goes down, what's the recourse? What's your next?
Well, we passed a bill a while back, supported by the two chairs, Mr. Schiff of Intelligence and Mr. Nadler, the Committee of Jurisdiction of Judiciary. It passed in a very bipartisan way, actually a veto-proof amount, bipartisan, went over to the Senate. The Senate amended it in a very positive way. 80 senators voted for passage of the bill, 80 senators. Something like 30-some Republican senators voted for the bill. And it was more progressive than the House bill. The Leahy-Lee amendment took it to a better place, in my view. So that's the bill that's what is sent over to us. That's what we'll be voting on today. And if there if the members, Congress will work its will. If Congress doesn't want that, we have our original bill that we'll send back over.
But why not the Lofgren amendment? Why is that not being?
That is up to them. We thought that we might take up, that was under consideration. Then the Wyden amendment gives different things, and we decided that where the votes were to go with the. Look, my long history in intelligence going back to the early 90s, either as member, ranking member, or ex officio all these years, we have to have a bill. We have to have a bill, and we have to have it signed. The administration, Attorney General Barr would like nothing better than not have a bill. Then you don't have all these protections that are built into our bills, and that's really what is essential about having a bill. Otherwise, you could just have an extension. But if you want to improve the protections, because it's always about security and civil liberties, so security and privacy, that's the balance you have to strike. And that bill in the Senate goes a long way, and it is strongly bipartisan. So that is the Rules Committee reported that bill out today. It's up to others in terms of consideration of different amendments. Mr. Clyburn's the vote counter, but we salute Congresswoman Lofgren. Congresswoman Lofgren is a real champion of civil liberties in the Congress of the United States, and she's just been remarkable, a very senior member of the Judiciary Committee, and she really opposed the first bill that we passed. The Leahy-Lee amendment was a vast improvement over it. Although our bill was good enough, this bill is much better. We hope that it would be the bill that could get the signature of the President of the United States. But we can, all kinds of things have been considered. This is the path we'll be on today. Thank you all very much. Oh, yes, sir. One more?
I just want to know your thoughts, Speaker Pelosi, on what's happening in Minneapolis with George Floyd's death.
Mr. Chairman.
And what should be done? Should the DOJ get involved?
You know, today we're talking about disparities and access to testing, disparities in access to health care, and the unfairness of it all. Mr. Clyburn began his remarks, as he usually does, talking about liberty and justice for all. This is such a tragedy. It's a crime. I feel so sad for the family, but also for just the community there. We had some conversations about this on our caucus call earlier today, and we have a couple of, some are hearings, some are forums and all the rest to continue that conversation and where we can go from here. There's a commission on the status of young African-American men. It's a bill in the Judiciary Committee that we've been talking about now, and all of a sudden, all the more necessary. Congresswoman Frederica Wilson has been talking about that for a while, including intensely yesterday and this morning. So it breaks your heart. It just breaks your heart. It's so sad, but there has to be liberty. There has to be justice there. Mr. Clyburn, may I yield to you on this?
Well, let me first of all thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank our former colleague, Vince Ellison, Keith Ellison, I'm sorry. I saw him and listened to him last night, expressing tremendous amount of regret of this. It's kind of interesting. I spoke of Senator Rubio's comments in the Washington Post this morning that my memory serves the commission on young males, etc., that the speaker just spoke about. I think he mentioned that in his article, not that one I read this morning. And the necessity for us taking a look at restructuring. And we started in a bipartisan way. One of the things that we have worked with here, Democrats have worked with this administration on restructuring some things in our judicial system. In fact, Senator Klobuchar last night mentioned the fact that when she was the prosecutor, she followed what was the structure in place at that time, and she said, we got to change that. We got to restructure. I just think that we ought to really take a look at this pandemic, look at everything that's happening around us, and let's admit the fact that it's time for us to restructure some things in our society. We got to restructure things so that we can build out broadband so that local, low-income communities, rural communities can receive the greatness of this society. We got to restructure things so that we can have online education for our children. We can have telehealth for rural and low-income communities. That's the only way to make the greatness of this country accessible and affordable for everybody. And justice is really at a threat in this country. And Rubio talks in this article about how if we do not do this, he sees real calamity in the not too distant future for our country. I've been seeing it for some time now, and that's why I've been silent this morning, because I go out there, I talk to people, I stop on the street corners. When I walk up down these hallways, I nod at the speaker and to Frank, but I spend time with the people who are scrubbing the floors and moving the furniture. I talk to them about their children. I talk to them about what their experiences, and I can tell you, we have got to do something to restructure things.
I know that you do that, but do they call you Mama? They call me Mama. Let's just close this by just mourning the loss of 100,000 people. Grace mentioned that such a large number were from New York State and how Elmhurst Hospital in her district was affected. Let's also just remember all those people in nursing homes. Like 40% of the deaths, I think, are in nursing homes. So very, very sad and heartbreaking for families. And of course, with me, it always comes down to the children. We want to be sure that when these people go to work, that they have the PPE, that they are tested so that they know when they come home, their children will be safe. I just close with the story Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Tlaib, told the day we were passing the CARES Act. She showed a picture of a beautiful little 5-year-old girl who just died of coronavirus. Her father was a firefighter, her mother a police officer. What's the question? How did she get this? And of course, they're big advocates now for testing about that. 5 years old, bringing home to the children. So we've got to stop this vicious thing because it's taking from our children, our parents, our grandparents, whatever, and everybody in between. And we have a responsibility to get the job done. That's why we say to the president, stop making excuses, take responsibility. That's what the president of the United States is supposed to do. In the meantime, thank you, Frank Pallone, for the wonderful legislation. We hope to soon get it passed into law, one way or another, and make a big difference for our country. Thank you all very much.